Hi, sweeties. How are you doing? Welcome to Exp0sing, and thank you all so much for all the love and support. Hope you all are doing great. Actually, I found this very interesting, and I thought I should bring it here because sometimes I am confused, and I know a lot of people are also as confused as I am. But I know a lot of people have actually read this book, Bible in, out, and all that. And this actually is a man talking about how the Bible endorsed chattel slavery, and if you have not read it, or doesn't understand it or something, or is just lying to, like, the Bible is just lying and all that. And the truth is that sometimes I am just like very, very much confused on some certain things and how the Bible supported slavery, some certain things in the Bible are like, and I am going to ask this. Do not get me wrong. Do not think I do not have faith or something. Why is it that there are some certain things that happen, especially in like slavery? Sometimes I just get confused. How did the Bible support slavery in the first place, right? I remember during slavery, a lot of things were cut off from the Bible just to deceive, or not really like to deceive them, because they really do not want the slaves to know some certain things, right? So they cut off some part and taught them some part, which is, I think it was after the slavery that they actually started going through and reading, getting to know more about the Bible, that they found out so many things. So it means some parts were cut off just to fit their narrative, and some were just. Let's get into this video.
Anyone who tells you that the Bible does not endorse chattel slavery either has never read it, doesn't understand it, or is just lying to you. Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion, and the fit for this video is Daredevil. And slavery is not only condoned from beginning to end in the Bible, but is explicitly endorsed in parts of it. Probably the most explicit part is Leviticus 25 verses 44 through 46. Now in this chapter, Leviticus is laying out two different systems of slavery. One for native Israelites, and that's debt slavery. And in Leviticus it is presented in a unique way because debt slaves serve for 49 years rather than the 6 years of Exodus 21 and Deuteronomy 15. And you're supposed to treat your Israelite debt slave kindly. But then we get to verses 44 through 46, where it talks about the chattel slavery that is reserved for non-Israelites, where it says, you will purchase your slaves from the nations around you, from the foreigners and their families that are living among you. You can buy them, you can pass them on as inheritance. They will be your achuzah, your property forever. And then at the very end it says, but you're not to treat your native Israelite debt slaves harshly or violently like you can your chattel slaves. This is an explicit endorsement of chattel slavery. This is not voluntary. This is not a means of working off debt. This is not a way of preventing captives from mustering a rebellion. This is just chattel slavery, and it is explicitly endorsed ostensibly by God in these passages. Once we get to the New Testament, nobody writing the New Testament is in a position to legislate, to write laws, and so we don't see any laws about slavery. We do see counsel that Christian slaves obey their masters and treat them with respect, especially if their masters are also Christians. But we don't really see anything that is laying out a system of slavery because they were not in charge of it. Their concept of slavery basically just matched the Greco-Roman concept of the broader society of which they were a part. Now, I've heard some people argue that 1 Timothy 1:10 condemns slavery in general because it condemns slave traders. And this is based on the Greek word anthropolistes, which is interpreted to mean slave traders. And this is how this word could be used in classical Greek, but by the time of the composition of 1 Timothy in the late 1st century or early 2nd century CE, it had come to primarily refer to those who engaged in illegal acquisition of slaves and selling and buying slaves on the black market. So illegal slave trading. And you can look at the Greek composition kaliroe from the early 2nd century to see the word being used explicitly to refer to those who go about slave trading illegally. You can look at Harpocration's 2nd century lexicon of the 10 orators for a description of an anthropolistes as an illegal slave trader. So 1 Timothy 1:10 does not condemn slavery in general, nor does Exodus 21:16, which just prohibits the kidnapping of an Israelite citizen, as we see in Deuteronomy 24:7 as well.
How do we deal with chattel slavery in the Bible? Usually when somebody brings up slavery in the Bible, the go-to answer is to say that it wasn't slavery as we know it, as the way it was practiced here in America, but rather it was indentured servitude. They were working off debts and were to be freed, especially in Israel with the year of Jubilee. However, our opponents have become a bit shrewder and realize that this only actually applies to Israelites. When it comes to foreigners, Leviticus 25, 45, and 46 says, "Moreover, you may buy the children of strangers who dwell among you and their families who are with you, which they beget in your land, and they shall become your property. And you may take them as an inheritance for your children after you, to inherit them as a possession. They shall be your permanent slaves. But regarding your brethren, the children of Israel, you shall not rule over one another with vigor." So unlike Israelite slaves who had to go free after a certain number of years, even if their debt wasn't completely paid off, that wasn't the case with foreigners. They could be enslaved for life and even bequeathed to children. So how are we to understand this? Well, we start by looking at the reason why Israelites were not allowed to be permanently enslaved. After explaining that they are to go free, it says, "For they are my servants, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. They shall not be sold as slaves. You shall not rule over them with rigor, but you shall fear your God." What does this mean? It's because Israel and its people belong to God. They could not in any real sense belong to one another. And the same goes for the land. That's the purpose of Jubilee, why everybody returns to their land, because they could buy and sell land to settle debts. But because it all belonged to God, at one point it all needed to be reset so things could be as God originally intended it. This is also why the 7-year rule and the Jubilee couldn't apply to foreigners, because if they were to return to their land, they would have to go back to their native land where they probably had nothing if they were slaves. And if they were born in Israel, they would have no land for themselves. Now, all this isn't very exciting from an apologetic standpoint because it's still slavery, but there are a couple things you need to keep in mind. The rules still apply. You still can't kidnap or buy kidnapped people. You can't injure your slaves. Runaway slaves cannot be returned to their masters. And there is still the overall command to love both fellow Israelites and foreigners. So even with this in place, your parallels to American slavery are still pretty thin. You also have to remember, and this is the most important part, that the whole Israel being strictly God's territory thing was temporary. Jesus fulfilled the law, and God would go on to reclaim all of the nations of the world. That's the whole point of taking the gospel to the ends of the earth. So that law is obsolete anyway, not because it's been abolished, but because it's been fulfilled.
So this is all I got from this. And there is something that I also saw that caught my attention, and it says how to own people. So number 1 is convert to Judaism. Number 2 is migrate to Israel. Number 3 is receive money and a house. Number 4 is, receive money and a house stolen from Palestinians. Number 4 is refer to the Bible on your own rights to own slaves. And the truth is that I have seen a lot of people also using that the same Bible to say that it is also in the Bible to own slaves and all that. And also it is also in the Bible where they say slaves obey your masters and all that. But then it's really crazy how sometimes nobody should be mad. Sometimes the Bible is a little bit confusing, right? Because there are some things you see and you're like, how did it support all this, right? And I still remember that during slavery, the Bible was kind of like, the way they taught the Bible, they did not teach the slaves like the full thing, because they use a particular part to hold them down to slavery because they do not want them running away. So they were also meant to understand that what you all are doing is part of your sins and all that. Because I remember one pastor saying that during the slavery, that the slaves did not fight back, or they did not complain, but they seek the face of God, and God answered them. To this very moment, each time I hear that, I am asking myself, so what he is trying to tell me is that people left their own people and traveled to another continent to steal people, kidnap, right? Not even kidnapped people, brought them over to another place, enslaved them, right? And somebody is saying that God forgave them their sins because they seek the face of God. And I am asking, where did they, or who did they offend, or how did they offend somebody? Because they did not do anything wrong. So the people that actually took them from where they are not even the ones that they are blaming, right? People that kidnap them, they are not blaming the people that kidnap them, but they are blaming the people they kidnap. They kidnap because they did not know God, because they did not, I don't understand it. But when they say, really, sometimes, do not get me wrong, I am a little bit confused when it comes to this book, right? And I think it's okay if somebody becomes confused, And sometimes I think there is so much enough, the world is too much evil, and there is some sort of force behind it, because it doesn't seem random, to me, because it's not okay to be mean, or it is not okay to be evil and all that. So when I see things like this and start to break them down and the rest of it, and I am like, it literally means, I don't know if it's the devil that advocates that I just don't understand, but let me all make this make sense, because we always look for a way to blame the devil and then tag the devil, because they actually say that the devil is someone that look like me, forgetting to refuse to tell us that Jesus actually looked like me and the rest of it. So really, just let me know what you all think in the comment section, because your girl is really confused about some certain things when it comes to the book. I know the book is also more like how do I say it? The book is kind of like, it's about Black people. I understand that part. But sometimes I think I am just confused about some certain things, how the Bible supported some certain things, especially slavery. I do not want to say this because I don't want anything to happen to my channel, but I just want to know. Yeah. See you all in my next video. Bye for now.